Hey guys, it's Brian from Mighty Startup here, and today we're going to be answering a viewer's question. And the question says, Brian, how would you vet a dietary supplement manufacturer? So let's answer that. And I really want to qualify this and say that the approach that I'm talking about today is one that I would utilize for a larger organization, maybe a startup brand that is doing fairly well, that is in various national retailers. So the approach here is going to be very different because you're trying to figure out partnership, long-term growth. Whereas if you're a startup brand, like brand spanking new, launching your first product, right? The service level that you're asking for is very transactional. It's not necessarily long-term. You're going to order one purchase order of inventory and see how things go, how sales go, how your business goes, and then reevaluate things from there. It's a one-time purchase, maybe two-time purchase, and then you move on. Or maybe it does really well, and then now you really want to establish that connection with the right partner. So the approach here that I'm taking might be very different from yours, but let's walk through what I do. So the first thing that I recommend is obviously you want to find a manufacturer that's local, if at all possible. You want to at least explore the basics, pricing, lead times, minimum order quantities. Get those things out of the way first and see if you're comfortable with what they're providing you, right? If those basic things don't work out, there's no point vetting them. And so you use that to roughly figure out who the top 3 suppliers are. And then from that, now we dive into the actual vetting process. And the vetting process that I use with manufacturers is a gated process. It's a 3-gate process, if you will. And the first gate is us sending them a very detailed questionnaire. This questionnaire that I have is built from my years of experience. There are a lot of questions that I've seen from other manufacturing facilities, from other brands, and a lot of them are fine. A lot of them are, does the job, but a lot of them at the same time aren't great. And very few of them are amazing and really gets at screening out the manufacturer. So this question that I have is very detailed. And what I'm trying to understand right now is just to see if they're worth the trouble. Do they have the basic elements of a quality program, of a compliance program? And on top of it, there's the basics, but then what else are they capturing that goes above and beyond? And on top of that, I want to also understand their level of expertise. So I'll ask questions about their environmental monitoring program. I'll ask questions about their allergen program. I'll ask questions about their food defense program. And some of these elements aren't necessarily a priority for a manufacturing facility, especially the not so good ones, or they just don't even know about it. So it gives me a good sense of what their foundational program looks like. Assuming they pass that, then I go into their second gate, which is an information request, a documentation request. And I have a pretty significant list of documents that I'm looking for: their SOPs, their policies, their programs, their certifications, their registration, their GMP certificate, and so much more. And again, what we're trying to do is try to get a sense of, okay, they say that they have these programs, but do they actually have it? I want to see it on paper. And this will give me the time to actually dive into the procedures, dive into the program in more detail, and prepares me for the third gate, which is the audit. Now, just going back to gate 2, when I look at these documents, I've seen some procedures that, yes, it's an official procedure, but the procedure is really, really light. Something as simple as, when the problem occurs, go see manager. And that's pretty much it. It's like four steps. It's not really a procedure. It's not really solving anything. You're at the dependence of the other person, of the manager that supposedly knows what they're doing. Whereas a procedure should be more built out. It should be people independent, if you will, and manager independent as much as possible, so that people can follow the process. And the process should identify when things go wrong, not just when things are working out, and what to do if things go wrong. Quarantining, putting things on hold, notifying the supervisor, but also escalating to the right people, to the right stakeholders, and how fast you got to do it. All these things. And a lot of the times, these procedures don't go that far. So that's why I asked for these documents to really get a sense. All right, they say they've got it, but do they really have it written down? Okay. Now, assuming they pass that, we go to the third gate. which is an actual audit/tour of the facility. And here, there's two things I'm doing. Number one, I want to look at the actual design of the facility. It's one thing for them to put these great machines, these encapsulators, these powder fillers and blenders in the lab, but it's another thing to see the actual design of the facility, because the design of the facility can also create vulnerabilities in your product. It could allow for contamination of your product. It could allow for people to adulterate your product, the workers, knowingly or unintentionally. And so we really want to suss that out. And, some facilities are designed well from the ground up. Others, it's literally a warehouse that has been gutted out and turned into a facility. So it wasn't from the ground up designed to be, a dietary supplement or a pharmaceutical grade manufacturing facility, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. But then if that is the case, what are the programs in place to make sure that the product is protected during manufacturing? When ingredients are being poured out, when they're being reviewed and tested, how are they protecting the integrity of the ingredients, finished products, packaging, all of those things? That's what we want to look for. The other thing that I'm looking for during these audits is the proving and the doing component, right? I talk about this in my other videos where, a lot of companies are saying, yeah, we do this. Yes, we're protecting the labels. Yes, we are getting the best ingredients from the best suppliers. But then how do you prove that? And there's a lot of action they do in their day-to-day, but they're not documenting that. And unfortunately, you have to document a lot of these things by regulation. And a lot of these companies might not be doing it, and they might be doing it, but they just don't have the right documentation in the right detail in place to give me a high level of confidence that it would pass muster if someone were to audit them. This audit can take a couple days. The tour itself can take half a day, right? And then from that, what I do is I identify all the observations that I've noticed, any certain gaps, any certain issues, any improvements that they can be made, and I create a final report and send it over to the manufacturer. And then I'm watching to see how they're going to respond. Some manufacturers that know what they're doing know how to respond. They have the right information, the right data, the right time frame, and level of detail to assure me that they're going to get all of these things done prior to us selecting them. And then other manufacturing facilities have never seen this before and have no idea how to respond, the level of professionalism that's needed to respond to these, and the level of expertise needed to respond to them. So that's also a point that I'm looking for. And then once I get there, all this information, now we're doing an assessment. I'm looking at the facility, their documents, the observation from the tours, how they're going to correct things, but I'm also going to look at the finished product that I want to make there. And sometimes I don't have a finished product, but as you guys know, I encourage you to create a label, a draft label, a mock-up, whatever the case may be, because it's going to have all your claims on there. It's going to have all the product features on there. And now I'm thinking about, can this facility deliver on these claims? Or are there vulnerabilities that might hurt this product, such as allergens, such as other contamination, other chemical contaminants, or other microbial contaminants? How would this hurt this product? Maybe the product is for a particular population, subpopulation, maybe diabetics, maybe pregnant women. So there's a different level of scrutiny that you have to apply to the facility. There's a different bar, if you will, that they need to meet in order to match the product. So I'm looking at it all, right? And doing this full assessment and then making the call as to whether I want to use them. And then we're not done. Once we figure out, yes, we want to use this manufacturer, I still need to determine, okay, well, how are we going to check in on them on a regular basis? What FDA calls, what is your verification activity? FDA takes this approach of trust but verify, right? Yes, we're supposed to trust our suppliers, but you need to check in on them, what they call verify. And you got to check in on them by way of testing, maybe auditing, maybe something else. But you have to figure out what that activity is and how frequent you're going to do that. So I also established that criteria. And this is required by law. And you can tell that this whole qualification process is in depth. It is a long process, and it's intended to be because you have to thoroughly vet your suppliers, right? You have to do that by law. If there's one check in place that a brand owner needs to hit, it is that you need to qualify your suppliers and make sure that that supplier is the only supplier you're going to use. This is definitely very clear in the regulation, and it's one of the key entry points of making sure that products entering the market is lawful and is compliant. Now, some of you are probably new to this and are looking at manufacturing facilities to explore, and you may be wondering, is there a list of manufacturers? And I can tell you, yes, this is a list that I have that I've been curating for a while now, a list of manufacturers in the US, as well as in Canada. And it's something that I do share with my clients in a consultation session. And if you are currently looking at creating your own dietary supplement company, your own business, or maybe you're in that stage where you're ready to explore new manufacturers, well, let's book a session today and let's talk it out. All right, I'm gonna leave it there for this question. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.